Christmas morning always feels different once your children are grown. The excitement quiets down. The wrapping paper doesn't fly through the air the way it used to. And the laughter is softer. More tired, maybe. That year, though, I didn't realize how much one small gift would change the way my family saw each other. My name is Linda. I'm 67, and that Christmas was the first one without my mother. She'd always been the one holding the family together, hosting dinners, making everyone feel seen. After she passed, I tried to take her place, but no one really does that job quite the same. So I decided to invite everyone to my house. My 2 daughters, their husbands, my son Ethan, and my father, who's 85 and lives alone now. Everyone brought big gifts, glossy shopping bags, shiny bows, all the noise of "look what I got you," except Ethan. He walked in with a small envelope box, maybe the size of a shoebox, tied with a simple piece of string. "Is that all you brought?" My daughter Julie joked, her eyebrows raised. Ethan smiled shyly. "Yeah, I made something instead. I didn't think much of it." Ethan had always been quiet, thoughtful but never showy. He works as a school teacher, always short on money but rich in patience. After dinner, we sat around the tree. The grandkids were squealing, paper flying everywhere. When it was Ethan's turn, he handed each person a little card, handmade, written on cream-colored paper. Julie opened hers first, frowned slightly, and forced a smile. "Oh, that's sweet," she said. Her husband snickered. "You really went old school this year, huh, Ethan?" Everyone chuckled politely, the kind of laughter that hides judgment. I saw the way Ethan's face fell, just a little. He looked down at his hands but stayed quiet. When it came to me, I opened my envelope gently. Inside was a handwritten letter. Long, neat handwriting, a small drawing of a teacup in the corner. It said, "Mom, you taught me that love isn't measured in what we give, but how we give it. You've given me everything that matters, kindness, time, and a home that always feels safe. I don't have much, but I wanted to give you something you can hold on to when I'm not around. My words." I blinked back tears and smiled at him. "It's beautiful, sweetheart," I said softly. But my father, sitting at the far end of the couch, hadn't opened his yet. He kept the small card in his lap, staring at it quietly while everyone else laughed and went back to comparing gifts. No one noticed when he slipped it into his coat pocket and didn't say a word. Later that night, after everyone left, Ethan stayed behind to help clean. He looked tired, a bit embarrassed. "Maybe I should have gotten everyone something real," he said quietly. I reached out, squeezed his hand. "Ethan," I said, "you gave them something more real than they'll understand right now." He smiled faintly, but I could tell their reaction had stung him deeply. As he drove away into the cold night, I didn't know that his words, those little cards everyone had laughed at, were about to touch the heart that needed them most. Because 1 week later, my father called me, crying, and everything changed. It was exactly a week after Christmas when the phone rang. I was folding laundry, the house unusually quiet, when I saw Dad's name flashing on the screen. At first I smiled. He rarely called. He'd always been one of those proud, old-fashioned men who said more with silence than words. But when I picked up, I heard something I hadn't heard from him in years. He was crying. "Dad?" I said softly, setting the basket down. "What's wrong?" He didn't answer right away. I could hear him trying to steady his breath. Finally, his voice cracked through the line. "Linda, that letter, the one Ethan gave me. I just read it again." I felt my stomach tighten. "Oh, Dad, what did he write?" There was a long pause. Then his trembling voice began to read, "Dear Grandpa, I know we don't talk much. Sometimes you seem far away even when you're sitting right next to us. But Mom told me once that when you were my age, you lost your father, and you had to become a man before you were ready. I just wanted to say, I see you, and I'm thankful for what you've carried for all of us. I want you to know I'm proud to have your name on my birth certificate. Love, Ethan." By the time he finished, I was sitting on the edge of my bed, tears streaming down my cheeks. My father was openly sobbing now. "He sees me, Linda," he said in a whisper. No one said that to me in 60 years. Not once. That broke me. He told me he'd spent the past few nights reading and rereading the letter. Said he kept it by his nightstand, next to an old photograph of my mother. And for the first time in decades, he didn't feel invisible. When I hung up, I sat there in silence for a long while, thinking about how easily we dismiss words in this world obsessed with price tags and packaging. A week ago, everyone at that table laughed at Ethan's simple gifts. Now, the one person whose heart seemed unreachable was reaching back because of a few handwritten lines. I decided to call Ethan. "Dad loved your letter," I said when he picked up. He cried, sweetheart. He said it meant more to him than any gift he's gotten in his life. Ethan was quiet for a moment, and then I heard his voice waver. "Really?" Grandpa cried. "Yes," I said, smiling through my tears. "He said you made him feel seen. That's not something anyone's managed in a long time." There was silence on the other end, and then he whispered, "Mom, I almost didn't give him that card. I didn't think he'd care." I could feel my heart swell. "He cared, honey, more than you'll ever know." That night I couldn't sleep. I sat by my window, looking out at the quiet street, thinking about my mother, how she always said that the smallest gifts often carry the loudest truths. And maybe, just maybe, Ethan had inherited her heart after all. But I didn't know then that the letter's effect wasn't over yet, because a few days later, something unexpected happened at my father's house. Something that would remind everyone in my family exactly what real gifts mean. It was a Sunday afternoon when my phone buzzed again. This time, a text from my sister Carol. "Dad's called a family dinner. Says it's important. Be here by 6. Now, let me tell you something about my father. He's never been one for family dinners. He's the kind of man who prefers fixing something in the garage to sitting around a table. So when he called one himself, I knew something had shifted. Ethan and I arrived early. The house smelled faintly of roast and old pine polish, the same smell I grew up with. Dad was already at the table, wearing his best sweater, the one Mom knitted for him decades ago. Carol and her husband Frank came in loud as always, dragging expensive wine bottles and gossip with them. And of course, my younger brother Mark, the golden boy, strolled in, half distracted, phone in hand, pretending this was just another evening. I could tell from the tension in Dad's shoulders that this wasn't just about dinner. We sat down. No one touched their plates. Finally, Dad cleared his throat and said, "Before we eat, I want to read something." He pulled out a small folded paper, the same card Ethan had given him. I froze. I hadn't expected this. Carol chuckled under her breath. "Dad, we've all read Christmas cards before. Can we—" But he raised his hand. "No interruptions. You'll listen this time." The room went silent, and then he began to read Ethan's words, his voice shaking but proud. "Dear Grandpa, I know we don't talk much. Sometimes you seem far away even when you're sitting right next to us." I watched my siblings shift uncomfortably. Frank coughed. Mark stared at his lap. Carol's smile faltered halfway through the letter. By the time Dad reached the last line, "I'm proud to have your name on my birth certificate," his voice broke completely. The silence that followed was deafening. Even the old clock in the corner seemed to stop ticking. Then Dad looked up, eyes wet, and said, "That boy gave me more in one piece of paper than I've gotten from this whole table in 10 years. Carol blinked, her face tight. "Dad, that's not fair. We buy you things all the time." He slammed his hand on the table, the sound sharp enough to make everyone jump. "You buy things, but you don't see me. You don't even ask how I'm doing. You don't know what I miss. You don't care." Ethan was frozen beside me, wide-eyed. He'd never seen his grandfather like this. Vulnerable, honest, raw. Mark muttered, "Come on, Dad. You're being dramatic." And that's when Dad stood, pulled out a small box, and dropped it in front of him. Inside was a stack of letters, some unopened, some crumpled. "These," he said, "are all the birthday cards, Father's Day cards, and Christmas notes your mother wrote to you 3 before she passed. I found them when I cleaned her things. Not one of you ever opened them," Carol gasped. Frank stared down at the box like it might explode. "Ethan reminded me of something," Dad said quietly. "Your mother wrote because she wanted you to remember love doesn't come wrapped in ribbons. It comes in words, in time, in presence. You forgot that." He didn't. I don't think I'll ever forget that moment. The laughter that once filled our family gatherings, so smug, so shallow, was replaced with a silence thick enough to feel. After dinner, as we stood in the doorway putting our coats on, Carol finally turned to me. "Linda, I didn't know he felt that way." I nodded. "You never asked." She looked at Ethan, eyes red. "Your letter, you did something none of us could. You opened him up." Ethan shrugged shyly. "I just wrote what I felt," Carol sighed. "Maybe that's what we've all stopped doing." And then she hugged him, tightly. Longer than I expected. When we got home, Ethan curled up on the couch and said, "Mom, do you think Grandpa still misses Grandma every day?" I smiled. "Every single one." He nodded thoughtfully. "Then maybe I'll write him again." And in that moment I realized this was more than just a letter. It was a bridge. But little did we know that bridge would soon become a lifeline. Because just 1 week later, something happened that made Ethan's words matter more than ever. A week later, on a foggy Saturday morning, the phone rang. It was Carol, her voice trembling. "Linda, it's Dad. He's in the hospital." My heart sank. I didn't even ask what happened. I just threw on my coat, called Ethan, and we drove straight to the hospital. When we got there, my father was lying in bed, pale but awake. He smiled faintly when he saw Ethan. "There's my writer," he whispered. Ethan grinned shyly. "Hi, Grandpa. I brought you something." He pulled a small envelope from his pocket. Another letter, freshly written. Dad reached out with shaking hands, opening it slowly. "Dear Grandpa, I hope you get better soon. I'll make you tea when you come home. Mom says you used to build kites. Maybe we can make one together. I'll let you pick the color." Dad chuckled softly, eyes glistening. "Yellow," he said. "Like your grandmother's favorite flowers." He held Ethan's hand for a long time, his thumb tracing small circles. "You know," he said, looking at me, "I've had a lot of birthdays, a lot of holidays. But this feels like the first time someone sees me." I squeezed his other hand. "We see you now, Dad, we really do." He smiled again. "Then I can rest easy." I didn't realize at the time what he meant. But the next morning, when the phone rang again, I knew before I even answered. Dad was gone. The funeral was quiet, simple, just family. Carol cried openly for the first time in years. Mark stood stiffly, trying to keep it together. Ethan clutched the folded letter he'd written, refusing to let it go. When it came time for the eulogy, Carol stepped forward. She wasn't the same sister I'd known. Something had changed in her eyes. She said, "Dad taught us so many lessons. But in the end, it wasn't money or success that mattered to him. It was the words, the ones we forgot to say. A little boy reminded us of that." Then she looked at Ethan and smiled through her tears. "You gave him peace, sweetheart." After the service, we went back to Dad's house, our old family home. It felt strange without him there. Carol called us into the living room, where a box sat on the table, the one Dad had kept beside his armchair. Inside were dozens of small envelopes, each with a name written on it. One for me, one for Carol, one for Mark, and one for Ethan. I opened mine first. It said, "Linda, you never stopped being my heart. You were the glue that held this family together, even when no one thanked you. Now rest easy and live for you." Carol opened hers next. She sobbed quietly as she read. Mark sat frozen, his letter shaking in his hand. Then Ethan opened his. It simply read, "To my little writer, thank you for reminding an old man that love doesn't fade. It just changes form. Keep writing. Keep loving. You gave me more than anyone ever did. Love, Grandpa." Ethan smiled softly. "He signed it Love," he whispered. "He never used to." Later that evening, while the others talked, I found myself standing in Dad's study. On the desk, next to a framed photo of Mom, was the letter Ethan had first given him. It was neatly folded, carefully placed under the paperweight, like a treasure. And beside it, a sticky note in Dad's handwriting. "The truest gifts are the ones you can't return. Love, kindness, and words that last." I felt my throat tighten. When I walked out, Ethan was sitting on the porch steps watching the sunset. He looked up at me and said, "Mom, do you think Grandpa can read my letters in heaven?" I smiled through my tears. "I think he's reading them right now." We sat there for a long while, the sky turning gold and pink. And I realized something I wish I'd learned years ago. It's not the gifts that people remember. It's the words, the love, the truth that lingers after the wrapping paper's gone. Because sometimes the smallest voice, the one everyone laughs at or overlooks, becomes the echo that heals an entire family. And that's exactly what my son did. He didn't just give my father a letter, he gave him peace. And in return, he gave all of us a second chance at love.